The story begins with Jaehyun walking into a battlefield where his guild has already been crushed. His teammates are bleeding out on the ground, while the Thunder Empress sits on her chair like she's watching a show. Then she casually orders her men to kill the injured survivors. But before they can move, Jaehyun appears and wipes them out so easily that it's obvious he's the strongest person there. He even mocks the Thunder Empress, acting like she still hasn't learned her place. Then, as he puts on his armor and steps forward to protect the people he still thinks are his friends, a sword suddenly tears through his back. The very comrades he trusted had betrayed him. While Jaehyun stares at them in disbelief, the Thunder Empress reveals she bought his so-called friends with money, and those traitors coldly tell him to just die. Filled with rage, Jaehyun wakes up from his pod, runs outside swearing revenge, and moments later loses his life in an accident. But fate gives him one last chance, because when he opens his eyes again, he's back in the past, inside Warlord, before everything began. This is truly the game Warlord. The scale of the beast is immense. Hirkin turns his head with a sharp, focused expression. A voice calls out to him, labeling him as a mere newbie. He is ready to rewrite his destiny. Two men hold blades toward a dark silhouette. They scream at Hirkin to snap out of his daze and join the fight. The situation is reaching a breaking point. A monstrous jaw opens wide in a deafening roar. The beast lunges forward with savage intent. Fear permeates the stagnant air. Scattered corpses and blood stain the stone floor. Hirkin observes the carnage while the creature exhales heavy, rhythmic breaths. Death is an immediate certainty for the weak. Silver hair shadows Hirkin's face as he processes the timeline. He realizes the tutorial boss before them was deleted 5 years into the future. A massive contradiction begins to take shape. The man looks up with a hollow, stunned expression. Another player claims the game was only released 10 months ago. Reality is clashing with his memories. A tight close-up focuses on Hirkin's trembling lips. He murmurs the impossible dates under his breath. The contradiction is shattering his mind. Nearby teammates watch Hirkin with growing confusion and irritation. They see a broken man instead of a warrior. Tension rises within the failing party. Hirkin reaches down to grab a discarded sword. The metal feels cold and heavy in his hand. Survival instincts finally override his shock. Heavy boots kick off the cracked pavement. He lunges into a full sprint toward the danger. The time for contemplation is over. Hirkin's white hair flickers like a flame in the dark. The other players shout in a panic, questioning his sanity. He ignores them to face his destiny alone. Heavy footsteps echo sharply through the quiet air. Hirkin ignores the frantic warnings of a nearby player. The rhythm is set. A massive bull-like monster bellows with glowing red eyes. The beast lunges forward to crush the lone intruder. Tension spikes. High-pitched screams fill the air as the collision begins. Impact is imminent and unavoidable. There is no turning back. Sharp blue light carves a path through the gloom. Hirkin moves with a speed that defies human logic. The counterattack begins. Glowing energy slashes form a lethal cross-shaped pattern. Steel bites deep. Precision is absolute. Blood sprays out across the cold floor. The monster's charge is halted instantly. Its massive frame is torn apart. Dust kicks up from a pivoting leather heel. Hirkin follows through with the crushing momentum of his strike. The lethal motion is finished. A pained howl rings out from the dying beast. The monster falls. Silence returns now. Hirkin stands alone among the carnage of his own making. The body collapses. Death is final. Two players stare ahead with wide, disbelieving eyes. Bystanders watch the white-haired warrior with visible, frantic trembling. A legend is born from the dust. One man asks aloud if the beast really died in a single hit. The reality of this power is starting to sink in. They can hardly believe their own eyes as the monster vanishes. Two men in plain tunics look down. These bystanders call out to Hirkin as he stares back with a blood-stained face. He is a curiosity to them. Floating text bubbles appear in the air. These messages praise Hirkin's talent for combat. Even broken, the game recognizes his potential. Hand reaches out in a memory. Jaehyun offers Hirkin a place within his guild. This gesture was the beginning of his greatest mistake. Close-up reveals Hirkin's wide blue eye. He watches the world through a mask of blood. His focus remains sharp despite the chaos. Hirkin stands hunched over his sword. He announces that he reached a final decision moments ago. The weight of a new path settles. Two men smile and ask questions. They mock the idea of a newbie having plans. They do not realize a turning point has arrived. Violent slashes of red spray. Hirkin strikes with speed that defies his battered state. The transition to a killer begins. Fresh blood splatters against the frame. Impacts echo through the quiet tutorial area. There is no turning back now. Hirkin's head hangs very low. He declares he will be a dog to eventually hunt his enemies. Pride is traded for survival. Large dark text anchors the screen. The system recognizes his dark transformation. He is officially the hero slaughterer. Bold white characters fill the dark screen. The title sequence marks a sharp, definitive break from the past. A new chapter of his life begins. Hirkin pushes up his visor with a dazed expression. He emerges slowly from the deep immersion of the display capsule. Current surroundings do not match his final, blood-soaked memories. Blue eyes widen in a sudden close-up. Herkin stares at the ceiling in complete and total disbelief. The realization is slowly starting to sink in. People move through a bright, modern technology showroom. The bustling crowd ignores the tattered man in the machine. A sense of cold normalcy contrasts his internal chaos. Herkin sits upright in the display model unit. He questions why he is back inside a V-Gear store. A specific, painful memory from his youth suddenly resurfaces. Sweat beads on his tensed, youthful face. He remembers being broke and desperate 5 years ago. This detail confirms the exact timeline of his return. A sharp glare focuses on the polished floor. Herkin asks if he has actually regressed to the past. The impossible, supernatural truth is now undeniable. A metallic headset rests on the capsule ledge. He leaves the expensive equipment behind without any hesitation. His priorities have shifted toward survival and absolute revenge. Herkin sprints through the crowded shopping hallway. He maneuvers past confused shoppers with intense, focused speed. This physical movement anchors him to his new reality. Teeth grit in a determined, sharp snarl. Herkin recalls 5 years of secret strategies and future information. He is no longer a victim of fate. A female clerk looks up from the counter with a startled expression. Herkin leans in with a desperate intensity that radiates off him. The woman flinches slightly, taken aback by his sudden arrival. He demands a base model V-Gear with a sharp, focused tone. She stammers out a confused response while attempting to process the transaction. Herkin stands there panting, his lungs burning from his recent sprint. The urgency to reclaim his lost power consumes his every thought. Intricate plans for rapid leveling flood Herkin's mind during the brief wait. He ignores the clerk entirely while mentally mapping out his first quest. The woman holds his card out with a look of growing concern. She calls out twice to get his attention, but he remains locked in his vision. Herkin finally snaps back to reality and stares at her with wide, empty eyes. A sudden, cold realization washes over his face. The physical reality of his situation finally breaks his trance. A bitter internal curse marks the moment Herkin remembers his financial state. He realizes he is completely broke in this early timeline. This public gaming center is his only access point because he cannot afford a home rig. If he had the capital, he would have bypassed this crowded lobby long ago. Herkin clutches his forehead as the weight of poverty hits him. He must earn money immediately or risk falling behind the top rankers. The road to absolute revenge requires a massive amount of starting capital. A bloodshot eye widens in sudden shock. Herkin stares at the screen as a prompt asks what he is waiting for. The ghosts of his past are already closing in. Seal Yin appears on a massive holographic display above his small silhouette. She lectures him that hesitation is a luxury he cannot afford on the battlefield. Her presence is as suffocating as it was in his previous life. A calm, porcelain face looks down with indifference. Seal Yin mockingly commands him to become an overlord of war. This bitter encouragement is all the motivation he needs. A golden dragon roars on the glowing interface. The warlord login screen flickers to life with a final invitation to begin. The gate to his vengeance is finally open. A long shadow stretches across the polished tiles. Herkin stands perfectly still in the center of the hall. The reality of his current situation is undeniable. Dark hair frames the back of a rigid neck. He remains motionless against the backdrop of the busy center. Silence is the only response he offers to the world. A cruel smirk curls across Seal Yin's lips in a memory. Her voice echoes in his mind, calling him worthless one last time. This internal insult acts as a final catalyst for his transformation. Glowing blue characters pulse with digital energy. Herkin initiates the login and finally crosses the threshold. The transition to the virtual world begins. Combat boots click against the hard floor. He steps forward with a determined stride as his clothes rustle. The time for waiting has come to an end. Large white text appears on a blank background. A bold title card marks the official beginning of his journey. His second life starts now. Orange light hits the apartment railing. Herkin's new beginning starts in this humble setting. Quiet anticipation fills the air. A sleek white VR capsule hums in the center of the room. Herkin prepares to step into the machine. This device serves as his only weapon for vengeance. The technician finally walks out the door. Herkin stands alone in his cramped kitchen. No one remains to offer him help. Herkin stares intensely at his open palm. He clenches his fingers around a small, thin object. Bitter memories begin to resurface. A yellow lending card rests against his skin. Herkin recalls the debt that once crushed his spirit. Financial ruin marked the first step of his previous downfall. Two men sit across a dim table. The brown-haired trader slides a card forward with a smirk. Tension thickens in the small room. This man in the red jacket leans in. The brown-haired trader reaches slowly into his coat. Malice hides behind a polite mask. A sharp impact hits the wood. He slams the lending card down. The sound echoes like a death knell. Dark energy swirls around a twisted smile. The brown-haired trader watches his victim with visible delight. Cruelty defines every feature. Beads of sweat roll down Herkin's face. A chilling promise of misery hangs in the air. Reality becomes a waking nightmare. A clenched fist grips golden cards tightly. Herkin secures his resolve before entering the digital abyss. The gamble for revenge has officially begun. Gloved hands settle onto the metallic edge of a VR capsule. He prepares to dive into the simulated world once more. A descent into hellfire feels like a small price for justice. Blue light bathes bare legs within the sleek machine. The connection sequence initiates as his consciousness drifts. Every nerve ending burns with the desire for retribution. A distorted memory of a mocking grin flashes. Herkin recalls the faces of those who left him for dead. The ghost of betrayal fuels his final command. His mouth opens in a silent, desperate roar. He demands the system grant him entry immediately. The bridge between worlds finally snaps into place. A digital interface flickers against a pitch-black void. The internal software begins scanning for a recognizable signature. A new legend starts with a simple identity check. Glowing blue panels confirm the user's return. Herkin successfully registers under his legendary handle. The system acknowledges its most dangerous player. Silver hair catches the light in a ruined marble plaza. He stands tall among the pillars of the starting zone. The world of Warlord feels different this time around. A calm gaze settles on the digital horizon. He whispers a greeting to the world that once broke him. Notifications announce the completion of the initial tutorial. His journey toward forbidden magic begins now. Glowing yellow energy arcs around a blonde woman. Ariadne introduces herself as a guide for Herkin's future career. Herkin recognizes her role from his past life immediately. Her eyes glow with a soft blue light. She offers to assist with his upcoming professional path. This interaction marks the true start of the tutorial. A small icon represents Herkin's focused expression. Ariadne addresses him formally as an adventurer ready to begin. The story moves into the critical class selection phase. Slender fingers reach toward a swirling digital sky. Ariadne explains that Herkin must choose among 3 basic starter classes. This is the first major fork in his journey. Radiant light pools around her feet as the system activates. She notes that this decision will define his ultimate specialization. There is no room for error in his master plan. Bright sparks flash against a dark void. Skills selected here determine his final legendary status. Herkin already knows exactly which path to follow. Golden Knight silhouette draws a blade. Ariadne presents the warrior class as the first option for his journey. He stares at the glowing image of his former life. Shimmering bubbles hover over the golden energy. She recommends this path for those seeking exciting frontline action. Herkin remains completely unimpressed by the suggestion. He knows the limitations of this path all too well. Herkin's mouth sets in a hard line. He rejects the warrior class because solo play becomes a nightmare for melee fighters later. Efficiency is his only concern now. Shimmering text describes the powers of a cleric. Ariadne explains the value of supporting others with healing and buffs. Herkin issues a cold rejection before she can finish her sentence. He has no intention of being anyone's support ever again. Ariadne smiles as the last option remains. Herkin acknowledges that the mage class is his final, most logical choice. This calculated decision sets the stage for his ultimate revenge. Golden light radiates from her clasped hands. Ariadne channels the raw energy required for the class change. The divine aura fills the entire room with a blinding intensity. Bright tendrils wrap around his arms. Herkin accepts the magical infusion without a single moment of hesitation. He feels the system restructuring his physical and mental stats. His eyes glow with a bright yellow light. The young man stands firm while the transformation takes hold. His previous life as a warrior is now officially dead. A blue system notification appears. Herkin successfully selects a basic class to begin his new journey. The legendary path of a magic user is now open. Vertical blue streaks indicate an immediate teleportation. The surrounding environment dissolves as the game processes the spatial shift. High-speed travel is a necessary part of the world's mechanics. A pillar of light hits the floor. A mysterious voice greets the youngster who has come seeking knowledge. He has finally reached the sacred sanctum of the mages. Blue digital particles solidify into Herkin's form. He materializes in the center of a massive stone guildhall. The transition from the tutorial zone is at last complete. An old man grips a crystal staff. Golko introduces himself as the head instructor for all aspiring magicians. He serves as the gatekeeper to the world's most powerful spells. Golko asks what specific type of magic the boy wishes to study. Herkin demands dark magic with a cold and piercing stare. The forbidden path of the necromancer begins at this very moment. A massive library hall towers over the two men. Herkin stands firm while the instructor Golko stares down in disbelief. The silence of the room is absolute. Golko cups his ear with a confused expression. He tries to deflect the request by suggesting earth magic instead. The old man is clearly stalling for time. Golko's eyes widen as he asks where Herkin learned such a secret. This knowledge should not belong to a beginner. Warning text hangs heavy in the air. Golko cautions that dark magic brings a user's soul to total ruin. Herkin simply replies that he is fully aware. A sharp smirk plays across Herkin's face. He repeats his demand for dark magic with unwavering conviction. His resolve is absolute. Golko's jaw begins to tremble as he processes the boy's choice. Fear finally takes root in the instructor's heart. Purple energy swirls around a terrifying skeletal form. A lich-like entity manifests behind the desk to acknowledge the rare choice. The atmosphere turns cold and oppressive. The skeleton grips a glowing blue gem while mocking Herkin's ambition. It has been a long time since anyone dared this path. Herkin stares down at a weathered skill book with a hollow gaze. The entity commands him to place his hand on the cover and choose. The final warning echoes through the hall as the choice becomes permanent. Fate is sealed. Herkin reaches forward and firmly grips the ancient skill book. He interrupts the entity's warning to demand they move the process along. The protagonist refuses to let fear or hesitation dictate his timing. A speech bubble hangs over the scene as he commands the ritual to proceed. He pushes the entity to stop talking and start the transformation. This directness shows he is no longer a naive beginner. Coils of thick purple smoke erupt and wrap around his forearm. The dark magic begins to bond instantly with his physical avatar. His soul accepts the weight of the forbidden class. A skeletal jaw unhinges as the entity lets out a jarring laugh. The monster finds Hirken's arrogance fascinating after centuries of silence. An unexpected bond forms between the vengeful player and the darkness. Hirken stares back at the entity without blinking. The master of the tomb expresses genuine surprise at his resolve. The air in the chamber turns heavy with magical intent. Blackness fills the air as Hirken reflects on his previous life. He recalls a legendary video featuring a top-tier necromancer player. This memory serves as the professional blueprint for his new specialized build. A skull wearing a pointed wizard hat glows with intense violet energy. The vision shows a master of the dead commanding absolute authority. Hirken understands the hidden mechanics required to reach this level. A lone hooded figure stands over a massive defeated boss in a desolate wasteland. This player achieved victory without the help of a guild. Hirken knows that soloing the game is the only way to ensure total control. A large skeleton looms in the background of his thoughts. He declares that his new life starts with this single choice. The past warrior is dead and gone. Radiant blue symbols flare up behind Hirken's silver hair. The system recognizes his decision and initializes the hidden class transition. His journey toward absolute power officially begins. A vibrant blue notification window confirms his new class. Hirken officially becomes a necromancer, solidifying his path toward a dark and calculated vengeance. He smirks with cold satisfaction while whispering the name of his first skill. The words, skeleton fragment, hang in the air like a promise. A small, glowing skull manifests in the center of his palm. His mana begins to circulate for the very first time. Swirling blue energy arcs violently around the bone shards. Hirken watches as the fragments coalesce into a singular, haunting shape. The system explains that a skeleton warrior is consuming mana to take form. This summon is the cornerstone of his new, independent fighting style. Hirken looks on, reflecting on how different this life will be. He is no longer a warrior relying on the fickle loyalty of others. A skeleton with glowing blue eyes lets out a silent, ethereal roar. The undead creature fully manifests, its bones radiating a cold, magical light. A bony leg clicks against the ground as it takes a heavy step forward. The summon stands ready to follow Hirken's every command. Hirken smiles confidently and asks for the location of the training dungeon. He looks down to see the skeleton's head has suddenly fallen off. The skull bounces across the floor in a clumsy display. It is a humble beginning for his future army of the dead. Hirken stands amidst towering piles of old books. His first skeleton minion stares blankly at its own detached skull lying on the floor. The protagonist remains silent as he processes the clumsy state of his new summon. This is a far cry from the powerful undead legions he envisions for his future. Hirken lets out a small, confused sound at the sight. The path of a necromancer begins with this fragile, headless soldier. A dark boot steps firmly into a swirling blue vortex. Hirken walks through the magical portal, emerging into a dim, rocky environment. He rubs his head, feeling the slight disorientation of the teleportation. Behind him, the skeleton reaches down to pick up its missing head. Hirken observes the creature and realizes these summons are much different than the ones he encountered in his previous life. He knows he cannot afford to be relaxed with such weak allies. Hirken looks down at his interface with a sharp gaze. He calls for the skill window to review the details of his magic. The system screen displays the usage for creating a skeleton minion using bone fragments. Magic must be infused into these pieces to give the undead life and purpose. Hirken hums thoughtfully as he memorizes the specific requirements for control. Every bit of technical knowledge is a weapon in his new arsenal. Hirken rests his hand on his chin while contemplating his next move. A deep, guttural growl suddenly vibrates through the cold air of the training area. He looks up and acknowledges that his target has appeared just in time. A massive, jagged gray claw steps onto the cracked ground from the shadows. The system identifies the creature as a coal wolf, a standard training monster for the dungeon. Hirken prepares himself, eager to begin his rapid ascent in power. Hirken smirks as his eyes glow blue. He activates his first skill, Skeleton Fragment, signaling his transition into a necromancer. This marks the true start of his journey toward absolute power. Blue energy swirls around Hirken's hands. He points forward and commands the mana to manifest in the real world. The air itself vibrates with the weight of his dark magic. Bright light floods the dark chamber. The summoning process reaches its peak intensity as the system processes the request. Silence gives way to a violent, magical surge. Jagged energy lines streak across the floor. This visual confirmation proves the skill has successfully taken root. Success is now just a single heartbeat away. Skeletal feet plant on the stone ground. The summon begins to take its physical form out of thin air. This undead soldier is ready to obey its master's every whim. A bleached skull roars with blue fire. The skeleton warrior announces its arrival with a terrifying display of raw power. It is a haunting sight that would break any normal player's morale. 3 wolves back away in visible fear. The monsters realize they are no longer the apex predators in this territory. Their survival instincts immediately override their natural hunger. Herkin watches with a satisfied expression. He calmly issues a single command to his new servant to kill them. His choice to abandon his past life is finally being rewarded. The skeleton lunges at the retreating wolves. It moves with a speed that defies its fragile and bony appearance. The first hunt of his second life has officially begun. Herkin looks down with a smile. He notes that the summon performs significantly better than he ever anticipated. His calculated knowledge of the future is already paying massive dividends. The skeleton warrior shatters the monster's skull, and Herkin watches as his first summon finishes the target in seconds. The efficiency of the undead exceeds his expectations, and dust settles around the silver-haired man as the fight ends. Herkin stands amidst the remains of the battle in silence, contemplating the overwhelming and sudden speed of the kill. He stares at the scene with confusion while looking at the aftermath of the first hunt. Something about the summon's physical behavior feels fundamentally broken despite the victory. A hollow skull bounces across the earth, detaching from the skeleton warrior and rolling toward Herkin's heavy boots. Maintaining a solid form is a struggle for this summon, and glowing blue sockets stare from the dirt. The skull vibrates with a strange and clumsy energy, causing Herkin to exhale a heavy and disappointed sigh. Mental question marks fill the man's vision as he processes the total absurdity of his new companion. The path of a necromancer is proving much more complicated than he initially expected. Light emanates from a digital interface as Herkin frantically pulls up his skill window to investigate the system. White text scrolls across the screen, detailing the unique deep learning mechanics required for the skeleton to function. This summon requires a manual mode to act properly, and Herkin wipes sweat from his brow in relief. He realizes the mistake was his own for not setting the attack mode before the hunt. Relief washes over the young man as he understands the source of the clumsy performance. Blue energy crackles across the frame as mana surges in preparation for the next combat trial. The real hunt begins once the internal settings are finally fixed. Silver hair frames Herkin's hunched back as he stares at the interface. Herkin mutters in disbelief as the realization of a critical mistake takes hold. The reality of his situation begins to sink in. A blue system notification glows brightly in the center of the vision. Herkin realizes he accidentally activated a bizarre dance command for his summon. Precision is proving difficult for a novice mage. The skeleton warrior flails its limbs wildly among the enemies. This summon ignores the nearby wolves and continues its humiliating dance routine. Tactical errors lead to ridiculous displays in the field. Sweat beads roll down Herkin's pale face as he grimaces. Herkin curses his luck and his own mechanical oversight. He is rapidly losing control of the immediate situation. Herkin sits motionless on the dark, cracked ground. Herkin processes the utter failure of his first major summoning test. Silence fills the space where a glorious battle should be. Herkin's gloved hand trembles violently against his knee. Herkin struggles to steady his nerves after the chaotic and embarrassing encounter. Past trauma manifests as physical weakness in this moment of vulnerability. Large text blocks the blue system window with a warning. The system denies Herkin's attempt to scrap his current progress and restart. There is no easy way out of this dark commitment. Herkin rests atop the massive coal wolf's corpse. Herkin calculates his mounting debts while the skeleton warrior stands idle. Financial pressure weighs heavier than any monster he faces. Bold blue sound effects dominate the empty space above him. A heavy resonance echoes through Herkin's mental state. The gravity of his debt becomes undeniable. Herkin clutches his forehead with a pained expression. Herkin laments the short-lived optimism of his recent regression. Even with future knowledge, the present remains a constant struggle. Herkin clutches his silver hair while his skeleton looms behind. He releases a long, frustrated groan into the quiet air. The transition to a mage class proves more mentally draining than expected. Herkin's eyes remain shut as he catches his heavy breath. He questions the immediate, grinding difficulty of his chosen path. The true weight of this gamble begins to set in. Golden text scrolls across a dark, flickering screen. The system explains the complex mechanics of commanding a skeleton minion. Knowledge is the only remaining advantage in this high-stakes game. A blue notification highlights a unique deep learning system. Herkin realizes the summon evolves through observing actual combat experience. This undead construct is far more than a mindless drone. Herkin remembers the skeleton watching him slay a coal wolf. The minion was silently absorbing every lethal movement he made. It acts as a dark mirror to his own veteran skills. Herkin stands tall beside his silent undead companion. He leads the way deeper into the damp, jagged cavern. A cold partnership is officially forged within the shadows. A sharp glint appears in Herkin's narrow, blue eyes. He focuses his entire mind on the upcoming slaughter. Resolve quickly replaces the initial exhaustion of his class change. The skeleton warrior grips a crude, heavy wooden club. It stands ready with glowing blue sockets fixed on the path. Simple tools will suffice for the first necessary bloodbath. The wooden club strikes Herkin squarely in the lower back. The skeleton inadvertently hits its master during a clumsy, uncoordinated movement. Training a fresh summon is a tedious and dangerous chore. The skull tilts slightly as Hirkin delivers a stern order. He commands the minion to remember a single rule for combat. Every mistake is a vital lesson for his growing army. Hirkin's messy silver hair whips as he shouts. He warns his summon that death follows a failure to dodge. The harsh training regime begins in earnest. Intense blue energy streaks across the frozen screen. Hirkin moves with a speed that defies his new mage class. He pushes his physical limits alongside his dark magic. Sharp shards of rock fly into the air. Impact rattles the floor. Every failure creates a dangerous opening for the enemy. The skeleton warrior tumbles across the dark dirt. Hirkin immediately barks a loud order for it to stand. He refuses to let his minion rest for a single second. A skull with glowing eyes hits the floor. The skeleton warrior literally loses its head during the exercise. This level of incompetence is only a temporary setback. Ancient blue light pulses within a hollow ribcage. The summon stares blankly forward with mindless obedience. It waits for the next command despite its current fragile state. Hirkin grits his teeth against the sudden exertion. He narrowly avoids a heavy strike from his training target. His veteran instincts are the only thing keeping him safe. Gray dust plumes rise high. Ground shatters under weight. Total destruction is the only alternative to perfect movement. Hirkin's silver hair frames a focused, intense expression. He berates the summon for standing still after taking a hit. Recovery is just as important as the initial strike. Large speech bubbles dominate the cold, unforgiving landscape. Hirkin demands his undead servant find an opening to counter. This mindless bone pile must learn to fight like a warrior. Dark streaks blur the cold battlefield. The skeleton warrior holds its wooden club against its hollow ribs. Survival depends on the summon's reflexive speed. Two wolves with red eyes sprint from the shadows. They launch a coordinated assault with predatory intent. The monsters close the distance with terrifying speed. Jagged jaws snap near the skeleton. One beast leaps through the air with its teeth bared. Hirkin waits to see if his creation can react before it is torn apart. Blue energy flashes through the darkness. The skeleton warrior swings its heavy weapon in a wide arc. Precise magic overcomes raw beastly power. Fur and bone shatter. The monster is thrown backward by the sheer force. Hirkin's calculated mana has successfully neutralized the threat. The beast collapses into the dirt. It lies motionless as the red glow fades from its eyes. This first victory marks the beginning of a true undead army. Hirkin stands with hands on hips. He gazes at the battlefield with a critical, silver-haired glare. The necromancer evaluates his minion's clumsy but effective performance. Large bubbles dominate the cold scene. Hirkin scolds the summon for getting distracted during the heat of battle. He demands absolute focus from his undead tools. Blue system windows flicker into view. The proficiency of his skeleton fragment skill increases steadily. This repetitive grind is the foundation of his future empire. Golden light surrounds the skeleton warrior as it materializes in the dark. Hirkin watches the summon stabilize within the cavern. The ritual's success proves his mastery is returning. A sharp smirk forms on Hirkin's face as he observes the results. He clenches his fist in satisfaction. His journey back to the top has truly begun. Sunlight hits the rooftops of Figus Castle. Hirkin steps into the beginner village to resupply and plan his next move. The town serves as a busy hub for aspiring heroes. Players gather in the crowded market to form new parties. Hirkin walks past various recruitment calls without stopping. He remains a silent ghost among the loud, chaotic masses. Internal thoughts confirm the skeleton's worth in battle. He analyzes his recent combat training with the undead. Soloing the next dungeon is now an absolute certainty. Hirkin's head tilts as someone bumps his side with force. The sudden impact halts his forward momentum instantly. A confrontation brews in the middle of the busy street. Speech bubbles demand a public apology for the accidental collision. An arrogant player tries to assert dominance over the solo traveler. The peace of the town is briefly interrupted by the tension. A rough hand grips Hirkin's shoulder tightly. Hirkin assesses the level of his aggressive attackers. These thugs are merely small pebbles on his path. Hirkin's eyes narrow with genuine annoyance at the delay. He exhales a long, tired sigh while looking away. Violence seems like the only logical time saver available to him. The thug shouts with veins popping in his neck. He reacts violently to Hirkin's complete lack of fear. This encounter is about to turn very bloody. Sharp red sound effects fill the screen. A sudden impact interrupts the heated confrontation. The chaotic energy shifts instantly. A man in a floral shirt grabs the thug's arm. Shev, the Matador, intervenes with effortless strength. Hirkin stares up at his unexpected savior. A large hand rests firmly on the golden-haired man. Shev maintains a calm, almost bored grip on his opponent. The elite warrior's presence is overwhelming. A white speech bubble appears over the crowd. Shev lectures the aggressor about the futility of hitting people. His casual demeanor hides a terrifying level of power. Shev rubs his chin while assessing the scene. He looks down at Hirkin with curious, narrowed eyes. The legendary player is evaluating the rookie before him. Hirkin's face is pale and covered in sweat. He recognizes the man who dominated the previous timeline. Seeing a ghost from the future is physically jarring. Another sharp impact sound echoes through the alley. The physical struggle reaches a sudden, decisive conclusion. No one dares to move in this titan's presence. An exclamation mark highlights the sudden shock of the moment. The thug realizes he has stepped into a nightmare. Control of the room has shifted entirely. A close-up reveals Shev's relaxed, stubbled smile. He repeats his warning about resorting to physical violence. The irony of a top-tier warrior preaching peace is palpable. Shev continues to hold the thug by the collar. He keeps the aggressive player completely immobilized with one hand. The gap in their levels is vast. Herkin remains in the shadows, watching the exchange. He stays quiet while processing the appearance of a future rival. This encounter will change his entire trajectory. Herkin narrows his eyes in pure disbelief. He recognizes the man's unmistakable, loud fashion sense immediately. The past rushes back with terrifying clarity. A close-up highlights Shev's bulging arm under the floral print. Shev carries a level of relaxed power that intimidates everyone nearby. His casual presence is a mask for a predator. He smiles through sunglasses while maintaining a death grip on his opponent. Shev remains completely unfazed by the growing tension in the room. This man is a walking disaster. The name Matador Shev echoes in Herkin's thoughts. Herkin confirms the identity of the top-ranked warrior from his previous life. A legend stands only a few feet away. Herkin recalls Shev's peak status as the gravity of the situation settles. He realizes he is witnessing a master at work. The atmosphere in the tavern turns freezing cold. Herkin gasps as memories of Shev's past dominance resurface. He watches the elite player command the space with ease. The air grows heavy with the scent of mana. Shev pins the struggling thug against the floor. He uses a fraction of his strength to end the conflict. Physical superiority is absolute. The thug's face twists into a mask of pathetic terror. He frantically screams that the other man initiated the violence. Fear strips away any remaining dignity. Shev laughs at the man's desperate attempt to play the victim. He mocks the thug by quoting the law of retaliation. The conversation is over before it truly begins. A blinding red flash consumes the entire frame. Shev strikes with sudden, overwhelming force. The tavern erupts into chaos. Red energy slashes across the vision of everyone present. An explosion of crimson light signals a devastating physical impact. The sheer force is total and immediate. Herkin watches with wide eyes as the memory of this power resurfaces. He recalls the gap in strength that once felt completely insurmountable. A wide, confident grin stretches across the attacker's face. Shev mocks the man for daring to strike his open palm. The psychological dominance is now absolute. Shev's glowing red eyes pierce through the haze of the tavern. He gathers a surge of overwhelming mana for the next blow. Panicked bystanders finally scream out his name in realization. Terror spreads through the crowd like wildfire. Symbols of the Red Bulls Guild flash through the recollection. Shev represents one of the top 30 most powerful guilds in the game. His reputation for loving a bloody fight is well earned. The signature Hawaiian shirt and heavy leather belt become visible. This man is the infamous Matador, a killer among players. He stands as a terrifying pillar of martial prowess. A trembling thug stammers out a confused, desperate question. He cannot fathom why a high ranker would be in such a lowly place. Logic fails him when faced with a true monster. Shev places a heavy, mocking hand on the man's shoulder. He smiles while his target sweats in pure, unadulterated agony. The thug's face turns a ghostly gray as he begs for forgiveness. His spirit breaks before another strike is even delivered. A defeated man cowers on the dusty ground. Shev turns his back on the victim and strolls away with easy confidence. The crowd watches in stunned silence at the casual display of power. Shev flashes a wide, carefree grin toward the onlookers. He claims he is simply happy that the conflict ended through peaceful conversation. This blatant lie leaves the surrounding players speechless. Shev reaches out and firmly claps Herkin on the shoulder. He tells the young man to ignore the presence of such low-level thugs. The legendary warrior treats the entire encounter as a minor distraction. Thick, calloused fingers grip the fabric of Herkin's hood. Shev exerts a friendly but heavy pressure that keeps the younger man rooted in place. The physical contact feels like a lead way to the regressor. Herkin remains perfectly still, his eyes hidden beneath the shadow of his hair. He offers no verbal response to the top-ranked player's attempts at friendliness. This cold silence causes Shev's smile to falter into a look of genuine confusion. Herkin abruptly pulls away and begins walking into the dense crowd. He leaves the confused Matador standing alone in the middle of the street. The bright floral pattern of Shev's shirt remains stationary while he ponders the strange boy. He stands in silence as his confusion grows. This encounter leaves the elite warrior deeply unsettled. Herkin moves through the city with a rigid, mechanical gait. He curses his own involuntary reaction to the presence of a true monster. The memory of his past life's helplessness continues to haunt his psyche. His fingers tremble violently as he clenches them into tight fists. He admits to himself that the sheer aura of Shev's power still causes him to recoil in fear. This weakness is a bitter pill for a man seeking absolute strength. Herkin's gaze sharpens into a look of predatory focus and raw hatred. He vows to transform this fear into the fuel required for his ultimate goal. He will not rest until he becomes a hunter capable of slaughtering heroes. Embers dance against a cold stone wall as light slowly returns to the cave. Herkin's resolve hardens in the flickering shadows. Survival starts with a single, controlled spark. Torches illuminate a jagged rocky passage where the mage moves deeper into the dungeon. Dark corners hide the dangers of this low-level zone. White text bubbles float in the darkness to outline the massive power gap between elite players. Memories of Shiru and Shev haunt the regressor's mind. Revenge requires absolute strength. Herkin clasps his hands under his dark hood while Shev's arrogant smile looms in his memory. Past trauma fuels the man's current obsession with growth. Weakness is no longer a luxury he can afford. A massive tiger wreathed in orange flames roars toward the camera. The cold tiger charges forward with lethal predatory intent. Every monster in this territory represents a potential death sentence. Violent blue energy streaks across the darkness in a jagged arc. Magic clashes directly with the beast's thick hide. The surrounding air vibrates with the release of lethal force. Herkin watches the carnage unfold from a low, calculated crouch. His first summon engages the beast head-on to test its durability. Strategy finally replaces the need for raw muscle. The skeleton warrior delivers a crushing downward strike with its basic weapon. Blue mana explodes upon the tiger's skull to end the struggle. Darkness serves a new master in these ruins. Glowing blue system windows flash across the interface. The skeleton successfully hunts the target to earn rewards. Herkin officially secures his first level up as a necromancer. A small skeleton clutches a wooden club tightly. The skeleton warrior stands ready as Herkin observes the battlefield. The pace of his growth is slower than expected. A blue notification window flashes in the air. Herkin achieves level 10 after a grueling session of combat. Gold light begins to pour from the system interface. The protagonist watches the reward transfer process with a subtle grin. His progress is finally gaining real momentum. A circular glass lens glows on a wrist-mounted device. Herkin checks the warwatch to confirm his current status. The familiar mechanics of the game feel natural once again. He reflects on how these features dictate survival in this world. A firm command leaves his lips to prompt the system. The blue status window materializes directly in front of him. Accessing his data is the only way to stay ahead of his enemies. Glowing blue energy pulses from the watch face. Herkin confirms that his core stats have successfully renewed. His meticulous planning is starting to yield tangible results. A menu displays a list of unallocated stat points. He reviews the values for strength, stamina, intelligence, and mana. A close-up reveals Herkin's sharp, calculating gaze. He prepares to spend these points with surgical precision. One wrong move could compromise his entire strategy. A system menu lists core stats. Herkin acknowledges that traditional necromancers focus on intelligence or mana. He chooses a path to break the established meta. A close-up reveals Herkin's smirk. He decides to dump every available point into his strength stat. This unconventional choice is a massive gamble on his survival. Golden light erupts around Herkin's body. He completes the transformation into a physical powerhouse. This marks the start of his unique combat style. System notifications hover nearby. Herkin observes his total strength stat surging to 53. He simply nods at the massive numerical jump. A tight shot focuses on Herkin's fist. He feels the raw physical force now coursing through him. This strength is the foundation of his new plan. The skeleton warrior tilts its head. It watches Herkin with flickering blue energy in its eyes. The skeleton warrior waits for a command it can understand. Speech bubbles appear against white space. Herkin clarifies that his commitment to the necromancer path remains absolute. This shift in stats has a specific tactical purpose. A skeletal arm remains motionless. Herkin explains that he is attempting to teach his summon. Active participation is required for the skeleton's growth. Herkin looks at his summon. High strength allows the necromancer to demonstrate advanced martial skills. Leading by example is the only way to raise a warrior. Blue light sparkles around the text. Herkin admits he is betting his life on the skeleton's growth. Everything depends on the skeleton warrior becoming a monster. Herkin gestures toward his skeletal summon with a steady hand. He reminds the undead minion that focus is the only path to real improvement. Growth requires absolute dedication from both master and servant. Herkin offers a confident smile and a sharp thumbs up. He remains certain that his veteran knowledge will eventually lead them to the top. This confidence is backed by years of bitter experience. A large timber-framed building stands tall under a clear blue sky. Herkin arrives at the Figus Castle branch of the Raiders Association to find a contract. This establishment serves as the central hub for all local mercenaries. A hand grips a glowing quest card with intensity. These simple tasks are the essential lifeblood of any low-level player's progression. Every scrap of experience is vital during the early grind. Two men shove each other while shouting about who arrived first. The greedy players fight over the most lucrative rewards currently on display. Desperation often breeds unnecessary conflict among those lacking true talent. Herkin watches the pathetic scuffle with a detached, cold expression. He notes that while the quests are mediocre, the newbies are surprisingly enthusiastic. Blind ambition rarely matches actual skill in the beginner zones. An older bearded clerk sits behind a desk cluttered with paper. Herkin expresses immediate surprise at the lack of high-quality options. The current selection is far worse than he had anticipated. The man leans forward over his crossed arms. He explains that only the most difficult and unwanted tasks are left. These high-risk missions are usually avoided by even the most sensible adventurers. Herkin stares down at the remaining cards on the table. He internally agrees that the available choices are subpar. Veterans know these leftovers are usually a complete waste of time. A finger points toward a specific mark on the table. He spots a unique opportunity buried within the junk. This is exactly where his new plan begins to take shape. Herkin grins widely with a look of pure confidence. He reveals his true intentions to himself while ignoring the distractions around him. The plan is officially in motion. A blue system message confirms his search is over. Herkin locates the Baima Mountain Cave quest hidden within the rejected pile. The objective is finally clear. Glowing text outlines a mission to eliminate low-level monsters for a small gold reward. Acceptance follows immediately as he locks in the task. Efficiency remains his only priority. Herkin speaks directly to an old bearded man behind the counter. This NPC questions why anyone would take a job worth so little. Every gold coin counts for a struggling beginner. Sharp blue eyes narrow as the regressor looks toward the future. Herkin knows this tedious task is a vital stepping stone before he hits level 15. Patience will eventually yield the desired results. A rare title called Prospect shines within a magical frame. Herkin aims for this specific achievement to maximize his early game potential. Strategy trumps raw power during these initial stages. Lists of current titles like Amateur Mage float in his mind. These accolades provide permanent stat boosts to his mana and intelligence. Small gains lead to massive long-term advantages. A muscular warrior with glowing red eyes illustrates the title's true power. Burning Prospect provides a 3% increase to his core magical attributes. This serves as the foundation of his specialized build. Herkin grins in the shadows with predatory intent. He understands the cumulative power of these hidden game mechanics. Knowledge is his most dangerous weapon. A final thought bubble confirms his intent to start an overpowered career path. Herkin prepares to leave the safety of the town to begin the hunt. The path to dominance begins here. A white dialogue bubble hangs over the street. Herkin decides to prioritize his equipment before leaving the safety of town. Proper preparation is the foundation of his survival strategy. Shadows shift as the young man turns toward the exit. The protagonist completes his business in the safe zone. This journey into the wild begins now. Ancient stone towers rise high above a dense forest canopy. Herkin enters the hunting grounds to locate his first targets. The surrounding atmosphere is quiet and heavy with anticipation. Herkin's eyes narrow with dark, murderous intensity. He projects the aura of a seasoned killer ready for blood. This is the focused face of a man seeking absolute power. A full-body view reveals a bright pink bunny-eared jester outfit. The legendary regressor is forced to wear the most humiliating beginner gear available. Financial desperation often trumps personal pride in the early game. A single bird flies over the wooded trail. Monster tracks indicate that the coal wolves are lurking nearby. The hunt is officially underway. Dust kicks up as a heavy thud echoes. Herkin stumbles while adjusting to his low-level physical limits. Every movement feels sluggish compared to his veteran memories. A loud scream erupts from the center of the woods. Herkin vents his raw frustration at the ridiculous costume. The reality of his situation is incredibly difficult to swallow. A blue system window displays an insufficient funds notification. Memories of the armor shop's high prices flood back. Poverty remains his greatest obstacle in this new timeline. Herkin surges back to his feet with an angry snarl. He refuses to let a silly outfit break his resolve. Determination burns through the lingering embarrassment. Text bubbles float over a bright blue flash. Herkin promises to complete his next task quickly. Financial pressure continues to mount. Sunbeams filter through a thick green forest. The trail remains empty and unsettlingly quiet. Nature offers the weary no comfort. A blood-stained hand reaches across the frame. Pain radiates from the crimson-soaked fingers. The cost of survival is high. Jae-hyun crawls through the dirt in terror. He begs for life as strength fades. Memories reveal the previous timeline's brutality. A hand drags through the grass toward shadows. The struggle is silent and one-sided. Darkness swallows the last of hope. Herkin and a companion smile coldly. Their laughter echoes during the betrayal. Ruthlessness is now a requirement. The dark memory shatters into digital shards. Transitioning back brings a sharp focus. The past no longer holds him. Sunlight breaks through the mountain canopy. A new quest begins under open skies. Pacing remains steady and calculated. A man in plate armor stands tall. This greedy player claims territory with arrogance. Pride always precedes a fall. The armored man laughs while touching his chin. He dismisses Herkin's screams as newbie incompetence. The trap is finally set. Herkin kneels beside a fallen man in the woods. He begs for help while cradling his wounded companion, Jae-hyun. Desperation masks his true intent. A player in silver plate armor rushes toward the scene. This stranger stops to assess the crisis. The night falls for the performance immediately. Jae-hyun lies motionless on the dirt. Blood pools beneath the wounded man. The trap draws its first victim into range. The armored player reaches for his belt pouch. He offers a healing potion to the grieving survivor. Kindness in this world is often a fatal mistake. Herkin wipes away fake tears while looking up. He offers a hollow word of thanks to his benefactor. The atmosphere shifts from mourning to murder. A spiked mace swings through the air with purple energy. The weapon connects with a sickening crunch. Metal plates buckle under the sudden magical force. Red mist explodes across the dark screen. The armored man collapses as his health bar vanishes. Betrayal is a dish best served with silence. Herkin stands over the fresh corpse with a cold gaze. He whispers a final thank you to the dead player. This memory fuels his current ruthlessness. Herkin laughs alongside a bearded man in the fading light. This flashback reveals the true origin of his distrust. He will never play the victim again. Jae-hyun lies bloodied on the forest floor. He gasps out a final accusation against Herkin's cold betrayal. The weight of his dying words hangs heavy in the air. Herkin looks down with a gaze of complete indifference. He retorts that falling for the deception was Jae-hyun's own foolish mistake. Mercy is a luxury Herkin can no longer afford in this world. A hand tightens its grip around a stained dagger hilt. Blood drips from the blade as the life link is finally severed. The finality of the act marks the end of their history. Blue light envelopes Herkin's seated form as he prepares to leave. His physical body begins to pixelate and dissolve into glowing data fragments. He is logging out of the virtual world to escape the immediate aftermath. A metal wrist of ice shatters into tiny blue particles on the ground. The equipment vanishes alongside its owner into the digital void. Nothing remains of his presence in the quiet forest clearing. Two greedy players laugh together in the fading light. They mock Herkin for his earlier display as a helpless and pathetic newbie. Their arrogance completely blinds them to the predator he has become. One dark-eyed man calls for the group to find their next target. He views every other player as nothing more than prey to be hunted. The Ralph family villain PK Guild marks its territory with blood and theft. Their reputation is built entirely on the ruins of defenseless beginners. As Herkin focuses on his new path as a necromancer. Two coal wolves growl with bared fangs and glowing red eyes. They surround the skeleton warrior within the dense, dark woods. The hunt begins in earnest for Herkin's first minion. A sharp red sound effect echoes through the trees. The coal wolf lunges forward with predatory speed. The forest tension finally snaps as the beast closes the distance. Low barks rumble through the thick underbrush. The monsters coordinate their strike against the lone summon. It is a calculated ambush designed to overwhelm the skeleton. Herkin watches the chaos with a dark, confident smirk. He calmly whispers the command for attack mode. The hunter has officially become the prey in this encounter. Blue magical energy flares from empty eye sockets. The skeleton warrior charges headlong into the fray with its weapon. It moves with a newfound, brutal efficiency under Herkin's direction. A bright flash of light cuts through the dark woods. The summon delivers a crushing, lethal blow to the lead wolf. This single strike marks the definitive end of the struggle. 3 blue system windows pop up in quick succession. Herkin collects massive experience points for the efficient, clean kills. His ruthless training regimen is already paying massive dividends. Fallen wolves now litter the damp forest floor. Herkin notes that a simple sword has changed everything for his minion. The pack is no longer any real threat to his rapid progression. He wears a satisfied smile while looking at his well-equipped warrior. Prioritizing the skeleton's gear was clearly the correct tactical choice for this stage. Suddenly, Herkin's expression shifts as he forces out large, fake tears. He begins a pathetic performance to deceive the nearby greedy players. The skeleton warrior watches its masters acting with a look of pure pity. Even the undead find Herkin's level of shamelessness hard to stomach. White text bubbles drift over the green forest. Herkin tells the skeleton warrior to stop dallying and follow him. The master is ready to transition to the next phase of his hunt. The skeleton warrior scurries across the grass with frantic energy. It keeps pace with Herkin while clutching its wooden club. This minion is proving more useful than its clumsy frame suggests. A brilliant flash of light pierces through the dense canopy. The sudden magical burst illuminates the entire clearing. Something has finally triggered Herkin's internal alarm. The skeleton warrior freezes with a sharp exclamation mark over its head. It stops dead in its tracks to observe the surrounding trees. The undead minion senses a shift in the immediate environment. Herkin glances back with a sharp, piercing look in his eyes. He is checking the exact position of the players following him. His calculated paranoia is his greatest survival tool. The duo continues walking through the uneven forest floor. Herkin notes that a monster he saw earlier was just a distraction. He is keeping his focus on the real threats hiding nearby. Herkin's long mage coat brushes against the tall forest weeds. He maintains a steady, casual pace to lure the greedy players in. The bait is moving exactly where he needs it to go. A thought bubble appears as Herkin hears a faint sound behind him. He registers the clumsy movement of the men in the brush. Their lack of stealth is an insult to his experience. A gruesome image of a bloody weapon flashes in his mind. He remembers the cost of being too trusting in his first life. This memory hardens his resolve for the coming slaughter. Herkin's eyes narrow as a dark shadow falls over his face. He mocks the predictability of the players trailing him. Their greed has led them straight into a death trap. Bony hands grip a wooden club tightly. Herkin demands a mana potion in exchange for his forgiveness. This calculated trade masks his true intentions. 3 players stand in a tense huddle nearby. They counter by offering to help Herkin level up instead. Their false generosity is a transparent lure for the solo player. Herkin raises his hands in mock relief. He plays the role of the grateful newbie to perfection. The trap is now set for both sides. Glowing eyes peer from the dark forest. Coal wolves emerge right on schedule for the greedy group. This encounter provides the perfect cover for impending violence. The players share a knowing and confident look. They tell Hirkin to simply wait and land the finishing blow. Their arrogance blinds them to the necromancer's actual skill level. A man with gray hair grins mischievously. He asks Hirkin if he remembers the specific instructions. The betrayal is officially in motion. A bearded warrior lunges toward the wolf. He takes the monster's aggro to initiate the scripted fight. The players are fully committed to their predatory roles. Purple magical energy swirls around a palm. One player prepares a buff to empower the front line. He believes he is in total command of the battlefield. A green wolf snaps its massive jaws. Hirkin intends to lead the beast toward his so-called allies. Chaos is the necromancer's greatest weapon. Motion lines blur as a player panics. The situation turns against the greedy opportunists instantly. Their plan is falling apart in real time. Hirkin lets out a loud, dramatic scream. He continues his act of being a panic beginner to deceive the watchers. The performance works perfectly on the nearby men. One player exhales in relief after the fight ends. They watch Hirkin with growing curiosity as he regains his composure. Their relief is a sign of their own arrogance. Hirkin stands over a dead wolf corpse in a pink hood. He chides his skeleton warrior for being slow to maintain appearances. Maintaining the struggling newbie persona is essential here. Hirkin offers a bright, smiling thumbs up toward the group. He encourages the nearby men to keep fighting. His mask of innocence remains completely unshaken. Dark shadows fall over the greedy players' faces. They begin questioning if Hirkin's level is higher than it looks. Doubt is starting to creep into their minds. A sinister plan forms as they whisper together. They decide to send multiple monsters toward Hirkin to overwhelm him. Their greed is blinding them to the obvious trap. Hirkin looks back with a faint startled expression. He positions himself to be distracted by the incoming beasts. The bait is set for the final strike. A spiked mace glows with a menacing light. The players prepare to take Hirkin down for good. They believe the kill is already theirs. Shadowed eyes look out from beneath Hirkin's hood. He waits for the precise moment to stop acting. The hunter is finally ready to reveal himself. Red energy slashes. Bearded piker stares in shock. Hirkin dodges the blow. The hunter becomes prey. Hirkin ducks low to ground. He evades with precision. His movements are a blur. Blue energy flashes midair. Hirkin activates a skill. The counterattack begins now. Blood sprays from bearded piker. Hirkin slashes his chest. The predator falters now. Red droplets fly through air. The attacker gasps loudly. The power gap is undeniable. Hirkin lunges forward quickly. He prepares final strike. His eyes remain cold. Massive impact rocks forest. The ground cracks suddenly. Momentum shifts to Hirkin. Skeleton warrior stands ready. It guards its master. The Ralph family loses hope. Brown-haired piker trembles. He realizes his mistake. Terror paralyzes his body. A single word appears. Hirkin reveals his class. The trap is shut. A text bubble reads skeleton. Hirkin summons his minion. The tide turns. Gloved hand snaps. He signals the undead. Magic sparks ignite. Skull glows blue. The warrior manifests. Summoning is complete. Skeletal jaw burns. The warrior emits chill. Fear grips enemies. Skeleton warrior lunges. It charges the group. Formation breaks. Hirkin dashes forward. He follows his summon. Speed is terrifying. Rabbit boot kicks. He accelerates. The gap disappears. Light-haired piker shouts wait. He begs for mercy. Desperation rises. Both pikers plead. They want to talk. Their prey is a monster. Light-haired piker screams. Strike connects brutally. Mercy is gone. Blood sprays across the screaming light-haired piker during Hirkin's brutal counterattack. Hirkin strikes them down now. Both men fall fast. Broken bodies collapse into the damp forest floor while the skeleton warrior stands perfectly ready. This display of effortless, terrifying power leaves the Ralph family members completely speechless and broken. Piercing blue eyes glow with predatory magic while a gloved hand grips a sharp blade. Hirkin addresses the dying backstabbers with cold truths, proving he recognizes their greedy nature better than anyone currently alive. Dust-covered boots step over the damp forest floor. Hirkin marches forward while condemning the Ralph family for their backstabbing tactics. His old self would have fallen for the trap. A bloody light-haired piker lies broken beneath him in the dirt. This attacker stares up at his killer with wide, hopeless eyes. The predatory cycle finally reaches its inevitable conclusion. Crimson stains cover a desperate face. The man begs for mercy and offers items to buy his life. Hirkin coldly rejects the plea before offering a hollow apology. A sharp blade glints against the sky. Steel descends with lethal intent. Trust is a luxury he no longer possesses. A stark white speech bubble appears. Hirkin confirms his absolute lack of trust in others. The weight of betrayal defines his new path. Blue energy ripples across the fallen figures. Hirkin finishes the last of his attackers with a clean strike. System windows flicker into view. A message confirms the death of the player named Ralph. 8 ownerless watches drop from the corpse. Hirkin stares at the drop count with surprise. Even he is shocked by the victim's greed. A twisted grin spreads across Hirkin's face. He reaches down to begin sorting through the loot. The necromancer starts by replacing his beginner clothes. The humiliating pink outfit has finally served its purpose. Blood splatters across the forest floor as the skeleton warrior stomps down on the fallen piker. Herkin watches his minion finish the brutal task, ensuring no survivors remain. Blue light glows in hollow sockets while the skeleton warrior stares ahead with mindless, terrifying intensity. This unsettling presence radiates a cold power that dominates the silent woods. Herkin calmly asks his summon if it wants any loot for itself. Such an eerie bond highlights his absolute mastery over the undead. The scene fades into total darkness as the Ralph family's reign of terror finally ends.